The most likely answer is not that one lost boat drifted into Australia by luck. By 65,000 years ago, people were already living at MADJEDBEBE in northern Australia, which means humans had crossed the water barriers of Wallacea and reached Sahul with enough skill, timing, and group knowledge to survive after landing. That is the strange part. Even during lower Ice Age sea levels, Sahul was not simply connected to mainland Asia. Somewhere in the journey, people had to leave land behind. On one side was Sunda, the exposed landmass of Southeast Asia. On the other was Sahul, the ancient continent joining Australia and New Guinea. Between them sat Wallacea, islands, currents, channels, and horizons that could hide the next shore. This was not a walk. It was a chain of decisions across island worlds. A family group could not eat a theory. They needed water, fire, tools, children protected, and enough confidence that the sea would not erase them. The first hard date comes from MADJEDBEBE, a rock shelter in Mirarr country in northern Australia. A nature study reported human occupation there by about 65,000 years ago. The dating did not come from a single romantic clue. Researchers used multiple lines of evidence, including optically stimulated luminescence dating, to place people deep in the Australian past. And once that date exists, the ocean becomes unavoidable. If people were already at MADJEDBEBE, then someone before them had solved the problem of crossing water with no modern maps, no metal compass, and no rescue. A 2019 Scientific Reports paper put the point directly. The early settlement of Sahul was not an accident. The model tested winds, currents, visibility, and possible route choices. That does not mean they had a modern expedition plan. It means pure random drift is a weak explanation for a successful founding population. A landing is not enough. People had to arrive, reproduce, learn the land, and keep living. This is why the boat matters even when the boat is gone. Organic watercraft almost never survive for tens of thousands of years. Archaeology may preserve the destination better than the vehicle. So the evidence is indirect but powerful. We do not need to find the first raft to know water was crossed. The human footprint on the far side is the proof. Least-cost pathway models point toward northern routes through Wallacea, with island stepping stones and possible landing zones near the ancient edge of Sahul. But every route has the same emotional core. Someone had to trust the edge of the known world enough to leave it. Maybe they could sometimes see smoke, birds, clouds over land, or a dark line of coast. Maybe routes were discovered gradually, island by island. But even a visible island is not a safe island when the water between you and it can kill everyone. The crossing also tells us something about social intelligence. You need more than courage. You need people who can coordinate, remember, teach, carry food, repair tools, and decide who gets on the craft. That may be the real technology, not only wood tied together. A shared decision strong enough to move elders, children, food, stories, and risk across water. By the time people were eating plants at MADJEDBEBE, between 65,000 and 53,000 years ago, they were not helpless castaways. Nature Communications research on plant remains shows broad processing of plant foods in that early period. That matters because survival after arrival is the second half of the crossing. The ocean did not end at the beach. The new continent had unfamiliar plants, animals, seasons, fires, and dangers. So the primitive question becomes sharper. Why cross? Maybe pressure pushed them. Maybe opportunity pulled them. Maybe island hopping turned risk into habit until the final water gap no longer felt impossible. The honest answer is layered. We cannot recover the exact argument around the fire, but the result tells us the decision was repeatable enough or organized enough to create a human future on the far side. That is what makes this migration feel almost modern. Humans were not simply following animals across open grass, they were turning uncertainty itself into a route. And this changes how we imagine early people, not as primitive figures trapped by geography, but as humans reading wind, water, birds, shorelines, memory, and each other. The sea crossing into Sahul is one of the oldest signs that our species could choose a future it had not yet seen. Not because it was safe, but because staying still was not the only human answer. That is why MADJEDBEBE is more than a date. It is the shadow of a voyage. A rock shelter on one side of the world proves that thousands of generations ago, someone looked at water and treated it as a road. Why did humans cross an ocean they couldn't see? Because they were already the kind of humans who could imagine land before they touched it.